what we've seen also are these settlers are among the most fanatical and bonkers of religious fundamentalists. And I've been reading some stories in the Post and that shows that they're just harassing little hamlets, little villages of Arabs. The Bedouin are being harassed. They're making their lives unbearable until they're forced to leave. Now, again, you say it sounds like ethnic cleansing. No, it is ethnic cleansing. I don't know what else to call it. If you occupy a territory and then publicly state your goal is to get rid of a certain number of people from that territory because of their ethnicity and religion, then I'm sorry, you kind of cede any moral high ground, it seems to me. And it also seems to me, let me put this to you, that in fact, the way the Trump administration dealt with Israel, which is what do you want? How can we make it more than you want? And we won't ask anything in return. We will defend the annexation or the claim to annex the Golan Heights, the capital in Jerusalem, the Abraham Accords, which were essentially, it strikes me, a way of telling Palestinians to go fuck themselves because we're going to reach a peace without you. You're irrelevant. We can do this. And combined with massive cuts in aid to the Palestinians, which Kushner and Trump engaged in, Jared Kushner himself, a fucking funder of these West Bank settlements, funding them. And he's supposed to be the honest broker between Israel and the West. Surely you can say to some extent the absolutely lockstep support for Israel over the last, certainly since in the Trump administration, to some extent under Biden as well, might well have been a contributing factor to the despair and desperation that led to something like the Hamas attacks. Now, that's not to justify the Hamas attacks at all. It is to say Israel has put itself in a position where it's hard to defend it, morally speaking, even though up against the evils of Hamas, one has to defend it. So we're in a much more complicated and difficult position than we used to be.
So let me try to put it to you from Israel's perspective a bit more. The Abraham Accords, which is diplomatic recognition of Israel by certain countries in the Gulf, specifically Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. There's no question that this puts pressure on the Palestinians because it appears that the countries that in the past have backed them are okay with the idea that Israel exists within some version of its current borders and is going to be around forever. And it's not unreasonable for Israel to want to put the Palestinians in a negotiating position where they are trying not to eliminate Israel, but to coexist with Israel in some peaceful way. I think that's great if it can happen. I also think that Hamas didn't, although Hamas was certainly not happy with the Abraham Accords. It was clearly planning this way before the Abraham Accords existed. So it's not because of them, but the Abraham Accords didn't help.
But hold on a minute. So you think what the Abraham Accords offered the Palestinians was something we should applaud?
Well, I'm saying that the solution to this problem, which every decent person knows, is that Israel has to exist in a way where Israelis feel safe and Palestinians have to have control over their destiny and have to have a state of their own. And if the Abraham Accords if the effect of them was for Palestinians to think, all right, let's figure out a way so that we can get that endpoint, then great. That's fantastic. That is the endpoint, as I say, that is the only way that this conflict, I won't say ends, but turns into something that's not miserable for everybody involved.
Describe the endpoint as offered to the Palestinians by Jared Kushner.
So Jared Kushner, what I've described in negotiation is a form of pressure that Jared Kushner offered to the Palestinians. There was no actual state that he said, this is what you can have. I mean, the Trump administration view was mostly blank check to Israel, but I do think that a peace between Israel and some of the Arab states is something that should be encouraged, but that should be used in whatever way possible to pressure Israel and pressure the Palestinians into some kind of durable solution.
I do not believe for an instant that Jared Kushner in any way, shape, or form wants to see any kind of Palestinian state. That all of it is bullshit. That what they want is to keep to create misery, such an intense misery for Palestinians on the West Bank by putting them into Bantustans, by removing their right to Jerusalem, by giving them this like little, they offered some little suburb of Jerusalem as their pseudo capital. This stuff is all about contempt. It's all about telling the Palestinians, we consider you completely pathetic and irrelevant, which I think is the case with the Trump administration, isn't the case with the Biden administration, isn't the case with previous administrations.